I'm Josh. I'm the student pastor here at Sci-Life. And I want to tell you just kind of a fun fact as you're finding your seat. Just a fun fact that you might not know about me. Some of you do, but most of you don't. I'm a twin. I'm breaking it to you. I'm a twin. And so I'm going to answer because there's three questions that always come up when you say I'm a twin. There's three questions that always pop up. The first one is, really? Yes, really. There is another one of me out there. It's a real thing, I promise. Second one is, are you guys identical? I say no because we're not. And then you guys look at me sadly and disappointed. I'm so sorry. I'm not identical with my twin. And then the third question, and this is, it always makes me laugh a little bit. And it hurts a little bit too. They say, okay, so which one of you is older? I don't want to talk about it. Thanks. I'm not older, and so the truth is, my twin brother is 1 minute older than I am. And so here's what that means. I just want to give you a picture of what that means. First of all, he's held that over my head my entire life. That's always been a thing. I'm still really frustrated about it, but it's how God designed it, that's fine. But the other piece of that is I have always been with my brother. Always, like since I was born, through elementary school, it was if he played ping pong, I learned how to play ping pong. If he played basketball, I learned how to play. There was one summer where he started juggling, and so we both got really, really good at juggling. It's a useless skill, but I'm really good at it because we were always with each other. We were constantly together. And so here's the thing, because most of you probably don't have twins. If you don't, I highly recommend it. But if you don't, then you might have a sibling that is maybe a little older or a little younger. And so you're like, I kind of know what that's like, but they're near you, but they weren't always with you. See, we went through the same stuff. We were in the same grades, in the same schools a lot of the time, because he was constantly with me. And what that did is that built this trust. We didn't always treat each other well. We weren't always the kindest to each other, but we were always there for each other. We were always with each other. I knew I could lean on him. I knew he was someone I could rely on. And the reason I bring that up, because as I was thinking through Christmas and what that means for us, and as I've been thinking through the gospel and what that looks like and what the truth it speaks to our hearts and our lives, I started thinking about it. I was even reading a book. I was thinking about, okay, so what does the gospel simplified look like? Like if I could simplify the gospel into one word, what would it be? If you're thinking it's Jesus, that's not the one I landed on. If I could simplify the gospel into one word, it would be with. God created us to be with him. Jesus became man to be with us. If you have your Bibles, I want to invite you to open up to John chapter 11. We're going to be setting up camp here pretty much for the rest of our time together. In John 11, just to catch you up to speed, here's what's happened so far. So there's this family. Mary is one of them. There's Martha, and then there's Lazarus. They're all siblings, not twins, so not that great, but they're close. And so they're siblings. They love each other a ton. And Jesus is friends with them. I'm talking like he's been to their house. They've been together. And so Jesus isn't with them at that time, but Lazarus starts getting sick to the point where they were very worried that he was going to die. And so Mary and Martha sent out this messenger. And the messenger goes up to Jesus, and remember, Jesus is far away at this point. The messenger gets there and says, hey, Lazarus, your friend, the one you love, he is sick to the point where he could even die. Jesus hears this, and there's this instant love that the Bible talks about in his heart. And there's some things that kind of go on, but one of the things that he decides nearly right away, it didn't even feel like a choice, like he knew he was going to do this the whole time, is he said, okay, so we have to go back. Like we have to go see Lazarus. I need to be with Lazarus. That's where we pick up in verse 8. It says, the disciples respond and they say, a short while ago, the Jews there in Judea, they tried to stone you, and yet you are going back? They're like, Jesus, are you crazy? Like, you're going back. These people just tried to kill us. Like, we barely got out alive. Like, and you want to go back into that? I know Lazarus is important, but come on, can't we just write a get well card? Like, I'll set up a GoFundMe if I need to. Like, what do I need to do to not have to go back into Judea, right? Like, there's some risk there. Jesus, we could die. Jesus is like, you don't get it. Like, I have to be with him. Like, it's not a choice, it's a response. Like, this is what I have. I don't care the cost. I don't care what I have to go through. I don't care the risk. Like, I have to be back there with Lazarus. I was thinking back as I was reading this, my father-in-law, many of you know, he had a brain surgery back in August. And when we found out at the beginning of the summer that he was going to have his second brain surgery, I remember my in-laws, they were talking to me and Jenny, my wife, and they're like, hey, you guys don't need to come. Like, don't worry about it. It's not. And we're like looking up plane tickets. I'm like planning like my time off. Like, I was like, there's no way we're not going to be there. Like, there's no way. Like, we will do whatever we have to do because we are going to be with you. Jesus was going to do whatever it took to be with Lazarus. Thomas responded, and he says one of my favorite lines in the Bible. And it's just, I love it so much because it's this mixture of like confusion, uncertainty, and absolute faith. And this is what he says. He says, let us also go that we may die with him. And it's like, this guy's like got enough faith where he's like, hey, we're going to go. I'm going to be with Jesus. I don't care what happens. Not enough faith to think that they're going to get out alive, but enough to be like, hey, we're going to go in with Jesus. And I was thinking about this and I was like, oh my goodness, like what kind of faith? Like what would drive someone? What would drive someone to say, man, I don't even care what happens to me. As long as I'm with him, I'm going in. I was thinking about Moses, how there was this time, right? Like God had promised Moses the promised land and the Israelites kind of kept like throwing roadblocks in that because they kept messing up. And finally God goes to Moses and God says, hey, look out there. There's the promised land, that land of milk and honey, that land that you have been promised, the one that I've been talking about for all this time. It's right there. You can go take the Israelites, but I'm not going to. And Moses was like, what? He's like, are you serious? Like, there's no way. Like I don't care about the land. I don't care about the milk and honey. I don't care about those things. That's not what matters. I've been with God. Like, I have been in his presence. Like, there's no way. Thomas is saying, there's no way that, like, I'll go die with him. I don't care. Like, Moses is like, I'm not going in the promised land. I'm going to be with God. It's just like Chick-fil-A. Right? Like some of you, like, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, I love that Jesus chicken. I don't go for the Jesus chicken. Don't hate me, don't judge me. That's not why I go. I go for the waffle fries and that beautiful sauce. Amen. Like I'm saying, if it was a modern day like Moses story, like God, it wouldn't be the land of milk and honey. It'd be waffle fries and that dream sauce, right? Like you're like, hey, like that is what dreams are made of. And Thomas is saying, man, I don't care if I never taste that Jesus chicken again. Thomas is saying, like, I don't care if we die. I don't care if there's no waffle fries. I don't care if it's not the promised land. I am going to be with him. I'm going to be with God. I'm going to be with Jesus. I'm going to be with that guy that came, like that became limited even though he was without limitation. I'm going to go be a part of that because that's what I was designed to do. That's what I was created for. He said, let us go that we may die with him. They made it. They made it. They survived. In verse 21, it says this. It's because Martha comes out and she informs Jesus, right? Like Jesus gets there, they arrive, and Martha kind of comes out and says, hey, you didn't come in time. Like Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. And then she says this line that kind of stopped me in my tracks. She said, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. Soon, Mary comes out. Jesus loved Mary, and Mary comes out and she says, Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. If you had only been here, all this hurt, all this pain, all this frustration, this aching that I'm feeling in here could have all been prevented. And isn't that the breaking point for most of us? It's like, okay, Jesus, like I get that you're all powerful and all loving, but if you're all powerful and all loving, then why am I watching my parents go through a divorce right now? Why am I watching my GPA fail even though I'm trying incredibly hard? Why am I going to school and not feeling like I belong? Why did that girl or that boy break my heart? Why have I been humiliated? Why do I feel like I don't fit in? Why don't I belong? Why do I look in the mirror and not like what I see? God, if you love me so much and are so all-powerful, then why? And Mary and Martha are saying, man, if you had just shown up, man. If you had been with us, it would have been okay. And here's the tough part, because these questions that you ask yourself about your faith and about the things you go through and the hurt and the frustration, truth is, we're not always going to get an answer. There is an answer, but we're not always going to hear it. And I think a lot of times, that's the point of faith. See, Jesus doesn't go to Mary and say, hey, Mary, here are all your answers. Here is why Lazarus went through what Lazarus went through. He didn't say, hey, you know what? It's all going to be okay. He's in a better place. He didn't say, you know what? Time is going to heal this wound. He didn't even say, I am with you. Instead, he was with her, side by side. See, it says Mary wept. And what did Jesus do? Jesus wept. He saw the hurt and the pain and the things that she had to walk through, and his heart ached, and he wept. He didn't say, I am here. He was there. He was in it. Because he loved her and he loved Lazarus. Jesus kind of asks some questions, right? He says, okay, so where's Lazarus? And they say, hey, his body's over in this tomb. And so he goes over to the tomb, and in verse 39, this is what he says. He says, take away the stone. But Lord, said Martha, by this time, there was a bad odor. He's been dead for 4 days. They're like, hey, don't you get it? Like, we've already told you this. Like, he's been locked up. Like, he's been out. He's gone, and he stinks. Jesus doesn't care about the stink. Like Jesus like, man, I don't care about that stuff. Like, I don't care. And there's this mentality, right? Like in our faith, like if I'm going to be with Jesus, then I can't stink. Right? Like there's this mentality that I have to have it all together and I have to kind of wrap my life in a bow and it's got to be perfect, because if I'm dealing with sin or if I'm dealing with idols or if I'm dealing with unforgiveness or I'm dealing with anything that just doesn't look right, then there's no way that I could possibly be in the presence of God. There's this idea, and Jesus says, man, I don't care about your stink. I care about you. I didn't come because you smelt perfect, because you had it all together. I didn't come for that, because the truth is you're not going to have it together. The truth is there isn't a person who has stood before Jesus that didn't have some stank about him. Jesus says, I don't care about your stink. I came to be with you. If you're with me and you're near me, eventually that stink might start going away, but the point isn't the stink. The point is I am with you. I am here. I became man so that you could be with me. Jesus doesn't care about the stink. He stands before the tomb. Stone now rolled away, and he shouts, Lazarus! Lazarus, come out! He calls him by name because he knows him. In verse 44, the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Here's the problem. Because we're kind of in all areas of this story right now. There's some of us that are still in the tomb, having Jesus kind of call out our name, saying, "Lazarus, come out." There's others of us that know Jesus. We've accepted him, right? We've stood up in the life that he's given us. He's paid for us. But we haven't taken off our grave clothes. We still allow our brokenness and our sin and the things that we've missed to define who we are. Wondering, how could something so perfect love something so broken? How could he love us so recklessly? But the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. And they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. See, God so longed to be in relationship with us. He so badly wanted to be in relationship with you that he didn't care. Like he saw this sin problem, right? He saw this thing that separated us from him. And he said, listen, okay, so all right, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to go ahead and step into flesh, right? Like I'm going to step into all the hurts and all the pains and all the agony that comes with being alive, what comes with being man. He says, I'm going to step into that and I'm going to pay a price that's unbearable. See, Jesus' birth started this domino effect that the enemy could not stop. He so badly wanted a relationship with us that when sin got in the way, he said, I'm not going to toss them to the side like broken pottery or a crumpled picture that doesn't quite look like what it should look like. He says, I'm going to declare war. Right, we all heard Pastor Bob say that, like the nativity scene, that is a declaration of war. And he says, I'm not going to declare war on the ones that I love. I'm going to declare war on the darkness that consumes them. I'm going to declare war on the tomb, on the grave clothes that they wear, on the death that binds them. See, Jesus took those sins that each of us wrestle with. And he took those sins upon himself. And he took them up to the cross, that those sins that you still struggle with today can die with him up there. And 3 days later, he rose again. Because you can't stop Jesus. Like you can't stop him. Like you can't, think about how many things like death tried to stop Jesus. Sorry, you lost. Pharisees tried to get him, couldn't do it. Whips, shackles, prison, the cross, all these things tried to get Jesus. And he said, you can't stop me. Because the kind of love that propels this God that we worship doesn't know how to stop. He was motivated because he wanted to be with you. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. He's saying there's nothing you could do. I'm in this tomb, but I don't deserve to be called out. He doesn't care. Okay, so now he's called me out, so what can I do to deserve? You can't. He says it's not because of you. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. He said, you can't earn this thing. Jesus became man, not because you deserved it, because he wanted to be with you. See, today is going to be a little different. Today is going to be a chance for us to respond. And in a moment, we're going to have the worship team coming out. And they're going to lead us in a song where we have the chance to respond. After we respond, there's going to be stations around the room that you're going to get to go to. There will be worship going on. You'll get to go to these stations in whatever order, and you're not going to make it to all of them, to press in and experience what it looks like to be with God in different ways. But this song, this worship song that we're about to use as a chance to respond, as a chance for us to hear him say, Lazarus, come out. Lazarus, come out, wake up. There's some of us in this room right now that know of Jesus. Maybe you've heard of him, but you haven't placed your life into his hands. Lazarus, wake up. Step up. There's some of us still that have woken up but are still wearing our grave clothes, and we need to take them off. Some of us that need to recommit our life to Jesus. And there's others still in this song of response. I want you to be praying for the person that's making a decision right now. As this song comes on, we've got 3 roles. There are going to be some that are going to have the chance to give their life to Christ, and that's amazing. You're going to step out of that grave, and we're going to rejoice together. And there's some of you that are going to take off those grave clothes and recommit your life to Jesus, and that's incredible too. And there's others of us that are going to be outside of the tomb, and we're going to pray together saying, God, how good is this? How good is this that you have called us out, that you became man to be with us, that we, our creation, get to be with our Creator. We're going to have prayer partners up front. And I want to challenge you to have the courage to step out of that tomb if he's calling you. Because he's calling you by name. And he's waiting. Jesus, we love you so much. Give us courage, give us power to stand, even though death holds us down. Give us permission to hear our names from your voice, knowing that you have been waiting this whole time for us to step out of these clothes and to live in the life that you called us to. Give us permission to step to your altar, to come there and to worship and praise a God that we're just meeting, but we so badly want to know. God, you are good and your love is big, and we're grateful.